Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us to today's webinar, Selling Without Objections. This webinar was motivated by a conversation frequently had with salespeople at public webinars. What was the conversation? What do I say in answer to a certain objection? Price objection, whatever it was. And I would ask the prospect, well, what were the closing conditions? What were the conditions which, when met, resulted in the sale? And what I discovered is we were having objections because we didn't learn the closing conditions. Why do we set aside time as we are today to study and to improve? Following the central metaphor in the book, The E-Myth, most people spend most of their time working in the business. When we meet like we are meeting right now, we're working on the business. It's a time to be thoughtful. It's a time to improve. And just a reminder, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So would there be objections? Would there be objections if we knew the closing conditions? We use this metaphor of the glasses. On every prospect's desk, there's a series of glasses. These glasses are the must-haves. For control in a selling process, we need to know what are the closing conditions. When we know what the closing conditions are, then we can fill the glasses, which means we can meet the conditions. In order to learn the closing conditions, first we need to make the salesperson sale. There are 3 sales we need to make: the salesperson sale, the offer, and the company sale. If the salesperson doesn't make the first sale, the salesperson sale, there's no opportunity to make the next 2 sales, which are the offer and the company sale. And if you don't make the salesperson sale, then there's no opportunity to learn the closing conditions. So how do we do this? One way is to use type 3 knowledge. It helps earn the right to fact-finding. So there are 3 types of knowledge. Type 1 is what we know, type 2 is what we know we don't know, and type 3 is what we don't realize we don't know. So a script we could use is, we identified some issues you may not have noticed. We provide a solution for it. That's a way to get into a conversation that can lead to fact-finding. Here's another approach to learn the closing conditions. You tell somebody when you're on the phone, early in the relationship, a successful meeting would be, you're glad you took this meeting, you consider it time well spent. So how about I tell you about what we do for 1 to 2 minutes, and if you find any of this compelling, you could share with me, you'll share with me your most urgent needs. Does this sound okay? And I find this typically opens the door to fact-finding to learn the closing conditions. Here's another script you could use. Here are some common challenges that customers face when they bring us in. And you customize this to your space. Their supplier's not responsive, there are quality problems, they're not innovative enough, they're not customer focused. I'm hoping you don't have these problems. This also opens the door to a great fact-finding conversation to learn the closing conditions. Now you need the right mindset to this, which is one of total ownership. In his book, Built A Good to Great, Collins gives a fantastic metaphor for mindset in level 5 leadership, which is strong and humble at the same time. The window in the mirror. So when things go well, you look outside the window, as I am now, and you give credit to the team. And when things don't go well, you look in the mirror, you accept responsibility, and you ask yourself, what else could I have done? So in a dysfunctional company or dysfunctional leadership, these things are reversed. When things go well, you look in the mirror, you pat yourself on the back. When things don't go well, you look outside the window and ask yourself, who could I fire or who could I blame? So using the mirror properly is the opposite of learned helplessness, and it's key to developing the right mindset to earn the right to the closing conditions. Now, our context, broadly speaking, is the standard sales call. The standard sales call is how you interact with a prospect, learn their closing conditions, meet their needs, and close. Step 1 to 7 is how you set up the serious conversation. There are two kinds of conversations, safe and serious. In a safe conversation, you're never going to get a stick of business. The prospect's there probably for another reason, for instance, to get a price check. In a serious conversation, the prospect is there because they have a compelling need, and if you set up the serious conversation, in steps 8 to 12, you could do your fact finding and discover the closing conditions. You see, if you know the closing conditions, you shouldn't have objections. And then finally, in 13 to 18, we manage the opportunity and we close the sale. So here's some of the things we're going to look at today. How to become a consultant. We've already touched on this. How to discover the must-haves. How to find uncontested space. And then filling the glasses, which is meeting the needs. So let's look at questions as kind of like an input-output machine. Early on, as we're getting to know somebody, we might be perceived as a salesperson who's self-interested. If we do it well, we come out looking like a consultant. If the prospect's not talking early in the process, then if we use our market research, if we bring in quality market research, you get the prospect talking. In the urgency step, we've discovered 100+ facts about the prospects. What we need are the closing conditions. If we know the closing conditions, there shouldn't be objections. Let's break this down a little bit. So as we're doing our fact finding, we might be perceived as a self-interested person, a salesperson only interested in themselves. But if we handle the fact finding right, we come out looking like a consultant. So your questions will help you achieve this, as well as the introductions that I have shared. With your questions, you show domain competence, you show authenticity. So again, here's a script that could get you there. Here are some common challenges our customers face. Here are reasons they bring us in. I hope you don't have any of these problems. You might want to do a power of the wisdom of the room exercise in your firm. It's a 2-round exercise where the entire team submits best questions that are appropriate to your space. You might ask each team member to submit 3 questions. First, to discover about the company, the culture, or the decision maker, then about the product service need, and finally about our competition, my competition. The third one doesn't work in all cases. It might not be appropriate. So let's say you have 10 people on your sales team. If everybody submits 3 best questions in each category, then you go to a second round where you winnow it down and everybody winds up with 6 or 7 great questions. Once you've done your fact finding, now you're ready for the urgency step. Again, we're interested in urgency, not interest. In particular, we want to discover the why. Why are you talking to me? And the why now. So there are different kinds of questions. The why now. Well, let's say you've been calling on a prospect for a while and they haven't been giving you an opportunity, and all of a sudden they give you an opportunity. You ask the why now question. Here's what you learn. My competition, your competition rather, has been shipping late. Last week they shipped late and we lost Walmart as a customer. That's the answer to the why now question. So there are 2 types of urgency, internal and external. Internal urgency is the fundamental issue, the why. Why are they talking to us? Why? What is the fundamental need? And then, only then can you really go to the external issue, the why now. So there's the why and the why now. And the general rule is you can't work on the external, the why now, before the internal. So what might be an example? So if you buy a car, you might see an advertisement, 0% financing the last 3 days of the month. That's an example of an external urgency geared to answering why now. Why should I engage now? Well, if you have no internal urgency because you bought a car last month, the external urgency doesn't matter because you're not going to buy another car. So let's look at the input-output device again. You have 100 ideas from fact-finding. What you now need to do is winnow it down to the closing conditions that you could work on. When we're looking for closing conditions, we're not looking for nice to have, we're looking for the must-haves. And again, the metaphor we're using is on a decision-making desk, there's a series of glasses. Each glass stands for a decision-making criteria. In order for us to be in control, in order for us to avoid objections, we need to know the closing conditions. Once we know the closing conditions, we can make this decision. Is there a fit? Is there a fit? So here's a two-step procedure for smoking out the must-haves, the closing conditions, the series of conditions which, when met, result in the sale. 2 steps. I have the sense that X is a huge issue, is a definite must-have. So on-time delivery, high quality. So I know that's a must-have, high quality. What else is a must-have? If you've warmed up the prospect correctly in the first step of your process, if you're in a serious conversation, this 2-step procedure should harvest the closing conditions. Now be careful, don't use the word interest. Interest is a lower level here. You want to bring this to must-have, and you want to discover, are these the must-haves? Once you discover the must-haves, you ask a qualifying question. If I could satisfy you on these needs or conditions, could we do some business together? If yes, you might just have the closing conditions, the series of conditions which, when met, result in the sale. But if the prospect says no, there is still discovery to do. See, the prospect may have set the closing conditions to enshrine the competition, and you may need a new step for a defendable position with a what about question. So let's say the conditions are set, so it's easy for the incumbent to meet these conditions. So you've discovered what the closing conditions are, but the prospect already meets, the competitor already meets these conditions. So we need to ask a what about question to add a new condition or add a new glass. You might want to stop for a moment and think about, what are the questions you ask to broaden the decision set? What we're looking for is uncontested space in the context here of blue ocean strategy. So red ink, red ocean, you're going to lose money, it's cutthroat competition. Blue ocean, uncontested space, tranquil waters, reasonable profits. So one of the most important parts of our selling process is not only to discover the closing conditions, but to create uncontested space. And when we do that, we're selling without objections. Of course, once we know the names of the glasses, then we can fill the glasses, which means meet those conditions. Now, we're not always going to be a fit. Once we learn the closing conditions, we may discover it's not a fit. But I don't consider that an objection. I consider that not a fit. So the key underlying issue is, are you discovering the closing conditions? And if you are, if we can meet them, and if we develop a defendable position, and this is through the questioning, there shouldn't be objections. Let's look at a case history of closing conditions where the decision maker has established a set of conditions that's easy for the incumbent to meet. We're selling hotel rooms. The prospect is a healthcare company, a pharma company. They send salespeople into the territory, into our territory where we have 6 or 7 hotels, and they buy 300 to 400 room nights a year. So here's the background. For a year, the salesperson has been calling on these prospects, on this prospect. And we know what the closing conditions are. We have to have a room, it has to be clean, it has to be comfortable, but our price is 50% above the competitive price. Now the buyer is a pretty tough, sharp buyer. The buyer says a bet is a bet, it's all a commodity, you're all the same. So knowing the closing conditions doesn't do us any good. What we need to do is re-engage the prospect and add a glass, add a closing condition. So now we call the buyer who says you're all the same. This is after we've done the training and developed the questions and developing all the material. We call the buyer who said you're all the same. But this time, the saleswoman challenges the decision maker. She says, I'm surprised to hear you say that. Now, this is the entry point, or one way to enter a challenging conversation. And it illustrates the difference between business and social values. Many salespeople will fail because they're social sellers. They want to make friends. That's what they want. And so they won't challenge a prospect's thinking. But a business seller wants to earn the right to profitable business and first to learn the closing conditions. So the salesperson says to this prospect, I'm surprised to hear you say that. And the prospect says, what do you mean? Why are you surprised to hear me say this? She says, well, doesn't anything matter to you except for price? He says, no, the only thing that matters is price. You're all the same. And then she says, what about a good night's sleep? And this is where we bring in research, type 3 knowledge. So we developed an idea piece. We call them a splash. It's an idea piece. And we talk about the article in the Harvard Business Review, Sleep Deficit is a Performance Killer. Did you know? Did you know, like the day after daylight savings time, when you spring forward and lose an hour, accidents go up 8 to 10%. See, the buyer didn't know that. So we sent them the study. So it's a what about question. We're trying to add a glass. Unfortunately, the buyer didn't buy at this point. So the saleswoman threw in the towel, called it a day, right? Nah, I'm just kidding. Then we move to an economic justification. See, we have to move the prospect from thinking about first cost, the lowest cost on a hotel room, to productivity. What's more important to you? Saving $10, $20, $30 a night, or sending your salespeople into the field and they have a higher closing ratio, right? And then we did something else. We sent the GM letter. It wasn't enough just to make a material difference, type 3 knowledge. We had to bring in, air power. We had to bring in the higher ups. And so this is something you might consider doing if you're not doing, is it's the sales manager letter, it's the GM letter, it's a CEO letter. We write a letter supporting the salesperson. Your salesperson told me you're considering our hotel. We appreciate the opportunity. She's a pro. She can handle your needs. I'm reaching out to let you know as the general manager, I take a personal interest, et cetera, and we restate the selling platform. So let's do a recap here. Nothing happens for a year. Day 1, we call and challenge the prospect's thinking. We sent the sleep splash. On day 2, the productivity splash. On day 5, the GM letter. What happened? The prospect calls us after receiving the GM letter, and now we're in a serious conversation. Why? Because we received what we call a PIK, a payment in kind. So this prospect, who for a year has been telling us you're all the same, you're a commodity, the combination of the type 3 knowledge and the interest shown by a higher level executive pulled that prospect into the conversation. And what happened on day 6? On day 6, we made the deal. We closed the sale, and they paid 50% more a night for a room. Now, what's the moral of this story? The moral of the story is not that you could always close every sale or that you can always get 50% more. I think the moral of the story is we could have closed this sale at any time if we had done the process, if we had added glasses. In other words, they had closing conditions that enshrine the competition, the low-cost provider. We had to add glasses. The 2 glasses were type 3 knowledge about sleep deficit, and then bringing in a higher level executive to mitigate the risk. By the way, a great way to train is to share stories like this. So what are the closing? So what were the closing conditions? We added a material difference, better night's sleep, and risk mitigations, the letter and contact with the GM. So here's what we covered today. If we meet the defendable closing conditions, there shouldn't be objections. Closing conditions are the must-haves. When we identify the closing conditions, we want to ask the qualifying question. If I could satisfy you on these points, do you think we could do some business? If they say they won't do business, it probably means that the closing conditions are too generic and we may need to create a defendable position. We may need to create a blue ocean of uncontestable space with what about questions with type 3 knowledge. Once we've done that, and now we've got the answer to yes, if we meet those conditions, yes, we could do business. Now you could prove your case, which is filling the glasses. Well, we all know Rome wasn't built in a day. Thanks for joining us today. We're almost at the end of the webinar. You might want to think for a moment, what were your takeaways, if any? What can you do immediately if you're not doing it after you get off this conversation? If you have any questions, please write to me at andyg@urgencybasedselling.net. Love to hear from you. Next month, on April 13th, our next webinar is, what do you say to the buyer who says to you, sharpen your pencil, your price is too high? Thanks for joining us, and have a great month selling until we see you again. Bye now.